Welcome back to Kairyu Rider, and a special thank you to Triumph for reminding me why I moved to Japan in the first place. But in all seriousness, if you've been following my channel, you know that I bought a Street Triple 660S because it was the dream bike. It turned into a bit of a never meet your heroes thing. I'm not going to get too much into it, so if you want to know about what happened with my Street Triple, go see my Street Triple playlist. But just as a quick note, as a conclusion to that story, Triumph is taking zero responsibility for it, and it sent me into a bout of depression, and I really didn't handle it well at all. I mean, I lost sleep, my hair was slightly falling out from the stress. I'm so nervous about this bike because I got a used bike and it had used bike problems. Then I got a brand new bike and it was worse in so many ways. So I explained my story to Yamaha because I am now on a Yamaha Tracer. They showed me the oil, the coolant, the everything before I left, and guaranteed 2 weeks. If anything that happens, they will fix it right away. They'll cover a tow truck and everything. But, you know, Triumph definitely did a number on me. I really lost a month of my life and an amount of money I can't legally say, and they're just a bit savage on it all. But with that out of the way, this is last year's 2020 Tracer 900 GT. Our working theory is that the issue with the Triumph was I bought a not blue bike, because I guess I always get stuck with blue bikes, even though I don't like the color blue very much. Let's first talk about what I would have considered against this bike. Again, this is for me personally, the bike I want for my riding, and this is the competition that I saw. So the first is the bike I want the most, which is the Africa Twin 1100. Tax and all, that's about 20 grand USA. So I guess I don't want that anymore. After that, there was actually a bunch of Yamahas I was really interested in that I was even going to buy before I ended up getting this bike. But let's go through that list and just remember I'm in Japan. I'm in Tokyo right now. Every bike I'm about to talk about is being made 2 hours south of where I'm sitting right now. Okay, so the first bike is the 2021 MT-07. It's light, it's flickable, it compares more with the Street Triple I had. It's just a lovely motor, lovely bike. The suspension's a bit crap, but I can fix that pretty easy with some aftermarket adjusters. It is not for sale in Japan. It is June 5th, 2021, and you cannot buy a 2021 Yamaha MT-07 in Japan. You also cannot buy a 2020 anymore. I couldn't find any 2020 MT-07s in the whole country. The next bike, which I would argue is a perfect motorcycle for Japan with their moderate speed limits and all, is the Tracer 700 from Yamaha. That was never for sale in Japan. You can import one, but importing is not exactly easy or cheap. I could save money and get this, which I did. And as for the new one, it's not coming to Japan. And according to a Yamaha representative I talked to, it will never come to Japan because, I don't know. Some people keep thinking I'm running lights in my videos. See how it's red with a green arrow? That means straight only. I can't even turn left here. So now there's arrows saying I can turn left or straight, and that's driving in Japan. But the next bike I would have picked would have been the Tenere 700. Now, for my viewers from North America, you'll know you had to wait 2 years to get that bike after Europe. Well, Japan had to wait a few months after you to get it. And it's here now. I can get it. It was sitting right next to this for an extra $500 US, give or take. I don't really go off-road much, and I gotta say, this being cheaper, it's got a lot more stuff. Now, the next bike I was going to consider would be the MT-09 from 2021. SP's better for me because of cruise control, and that's about it. I'm not that good a rider to notice the other differences, I think. And that's not for sale in Japan, so I'm not going to get that. And The Tracer 9, I don't like the scuba goggle look that they did with the dash. And for some reason, to me, it looks even cheaper than this one, even though it's not. That's just a personal opinion. If you got it, great. You can't buy that in Japan. So there are no 2021 motorcycles from Yamaha available in Japan. The R7 was recently announced. I assume we won't get that till 2030. And I'm barely joking. Two bikes that are in Japan, you can get the Suzuki GSX-S750 and the Honda CB650R. Now the problem with those bikes is that, yeah, they're a bit cheaper than this, but their power to weight is similar. This makes the power lower because of its good torque, as everybody already knows. This isn't a new engine by any means. And they get about the same fuel economy. They felt about the same in weight, but this doesn't feel as wide as either of them. And this has so many more features, like a quick nod to traction control, switchable modes, cruise control, the menu that sets up so many things. How many levels of heated grips could one possibly ask for? Adjustable windscreen, which I'll be taking off immediately to make this my pseudo-naked sport touring bike. And this also comes with an up-only quick shifter as standard. You can get one for the Honda, you can't for the Suzuki. And yeah, for me, I'm sorry, fuel economy matters. I know a lot of people don't care. I actually got a lot of hate for complaining about that on some bikes, but to the keyboard warriors out there, I believe in climate change. I also don't make $1 million a year, so anything less than 45 miles per gallon on a motorcycle makes me wonder why I'm not in a car, forgetting the fun factor, of course. Now, the other bike that is available that I almost got instead of this is the SV650, which my wife is getting. That was, if you saw my other videos, the runner-up to the Street Triple. And the reason I couldn't get it is because it did feel like a bit of a downgrade, and it felt like Triumph screwed me financially and is now forcing me to buy this bike. And instead of picking it, I was settling for it. So I had a bit of a panic, and I found one of these still left over. So the money I got from Triumph bought my wife an SV650 cash, and she helped me finance this bike. Good thing she loves me, because we'll have a couple years to work this all out. Now, some notable concepts that keep getting teased at us for endless amounts of time, and some of which have been patented, so there is a confirmation they're coming, but they're not here. So the first is the CRF 850L, the smaller Africa Twin, or Transalp, or whatever it's going to be called. But again, it's not here. It just got patented in the States, but it's not here. The next is the CB1100X. Still a bit bigger than I might like, but also just a concept. And there's only a rendering from Young Machine, be it that they're usually pretty accurate, but it doesn't exist, just like the CB650X. And it looks like next year, 2022, they have discontinued the V-Strom 650 and the SV650 V-twin motor. And there's already patents for a new one, being a parallel twin 700 along the lines of the MT-07 range. Now, I could imagine the only issue I have with the V-Strom, the weight being so high. Like, this weighs about the same. It doesn't feel like it weighs nearly as much, because there's this big 20-some liter tank way up high on the V-Strom, two V motors sticking straight into the air. It just felt cumbersome in traffic, and this doesn't. But if they can fix the weight, and if they added cruise control, you know, like touring motorcycles should have, that would be a nice bike to look into. And the SV should get an upgrade in a similar way, but I don't think it'd be an upgrade from this now that I've got this. And so here we are with a 2020 leftover Yamaha Tracer 900 GT, which is secretly an 845. As I mentioned earlier, it's got traction control, it's got drive modes, and it's got enough. It's got, right now I'm in the level 2 traction control, which is great for something like the rain. I don't know why I'm in that mode, so let's stop being in that mode. Can't stop being in that mode. Gotta stop the bike. But It's level 2 for something like rain, level 1 for people like me that just appreciate the extra safety. I'm just pressing the wrong way. Up means down, down means up. Thank you, Yamaha, for that. See, I press down on traction control, it goes up to 2. I press up, it goes down. Figure that out. If I hold the up button, he showed me I can turn the traction control off. I don't imagine much off-roading with this bike. I don't imagine much of a reason to turn it off. I guess wheelies, but there's also the power modes where I'm in power mode B for babysitter. It also has ST something for standard, and it has A for alpha male. Not an alpha male, very much not an alpha male. And standard, it's fine, but B just works for me. It's still far more power than I actually want to use, just not so choppy. It's actually unbelievably smooth in B mode, so I'm happy. It has a slip assist clutch, which I will say is the lightest clutch I've ever used, maybe ever. It has all the buttons right here, which can be a hassle, but you get used to it quick. I've been on the bike for not even an hour. I'm used to everything, pretty much. The quick shifter up only. My Triumph had up and down. I never jived with the down. I'm happy with up and clutch on the down. And this is such a light clutch, I don't really care at all either way. This shifts far smoother than most any bikes I've had. It doesn't get stuck in gears. You don't miss a gear. There's no false neutrals. It comes with an adjustable windscreen, but all the reviews are right. Up and down make very little different with the stock windscreen. It doesn't really do much for noise. It's actually a rather loud one. Right now, going almost 60 kilometers an hour, it's making some noise. So this will become a naked bike real quick once I'm home. But yeah, just one hand, you press a button, it's tall, it's not tall. It has some little twizzly knobs to adjust the headlight. It has a power outlet as standard up front instead of under the seat. You know, for your electronics on the handlebar where you can see and use them. Magically wonderful, isn't it? Now, there's no real reason to get into the specs because this is a model that's existed for 3 years. It's, I think, the best-selling sport tourer in mainland Europe. So there's about 18 trillion videos about it. You can see them all. It's not new news. As far as what makes me happy with this compared to the other options, it's the only Japanese 3-cylinder besides the MT-09, but it has a bigger tank than the MT-09. It's a bit more comfortable than the MT-09. And again, cruise control because you got to get a 2020 or just don't get one. For the aftermarket, things like touring, crash protection, the ease of making my own custom luggage rack to put a box over the seat, it's just very, very approachable. Like the Triumph wasn't hard to work on, the Suzuki was easy to work on, this is effortless to work on and modify. I mean, this is the smallest motorcycle you could buy with cruise control to the best of my knowledge. But on paper, this has always been kind of the dream bike for me. I didn't get it because of my issues with Yamaha back in Osaka, which may be leaving some people to wonder what changed. If you missed out on that, in Osaka, there were a couple YSP Yamaha Sports Plazas that said I couldn't buy a bike because I'm foreign, and foreigners can't buy bikes. And I said, what if I pay cash? They're like, there's no financing and you can't pay cash because you don't have that kind of cash. And I said, well, I have it right now. And they said, well, we don't want your stolen money. And it was a Yamaha special thing. And I know people that have worked for Yamaha in the past and they said, it's kind of Yamaha, but it's worse in Kansai. And now that I'm in Kanto, every Yamaha dealer I've talked to has been much nicer. They speak only Japanese to me. They did say they've got someone who speaks good English if I want. I said no thank you. They said okay. And that was it. They never tried to speak English. They treated me just as good as anyone else. The only hiccup is I can't use the toll roads with the ETC reader because there was a fire at the factory that makes them, so nobody can get those anymore. Hard times. But one thing to even say how ethical Yamaha can be here is you think about going to a motorcycle dealership or a car dealership and they will say, oh, you gotta buy this, you gotta buy this, it's the best, we're amazing, we're wonderful. And Yamaha asked me, well, what do I want to do with the bike? And I told them, and they said, well, actually, you might want to look at this bike. We don't have it, though. The ones I went to didn't have this bike. And they said, unless you're waiting for a 2021, which is months away, I don't really want to sell you a bike because it won't be the right bike. They even went as far as saying, honestly, you might even want to go look at the Honda CB. Can you afford an Africa Twin? Can you afford the V-Strom? And they suggested other manufacturers because their bottom line seems to be getting me the best bike they can, even if that means losing my money. So that was a really nice thing to have. I found a dealer that has this bike. It has it in blue. I was a bit split between the black with red and getting a used one that was gray and red, and then this color. But in person, I like this color better. And all the used ones were like, oh, we don't know how good it is. Our mechanics don't look at it until you've actually bought it. So it's like you buy it with issues that are unknown without a test ride. You can see my video on used bikes in Japan to say it was better to get new. And so, yeah, I ended up with the blue one because it's the one I found. And the last thing about going with a Yamaha or any Japanese bike is reliability. And I know you're going to see a lot of people out there say, all modern bikes are pretty reliable. And I think that's generally true. But Triumph burned me so bad. Stick with a known quantity. This is how it goes. Just as a quick thing, I like statistics a lot, and statistically, this is one of the most reliable engines ever. As a European brand, it seems like Triumph's the most reliable. So sorry to the other ones out there, but if Triumph is the best and it was that bad, I can't buy a European bike right now. Maybe as a second bike, but I gotta get to work. And, when people say, reliability comes second to the smile per mile, well, I personally would say the most fun bike you can ever own is a bike that works. So reliability's got to be pretty high on that smile per mile. And not many people are calling Yamahas boring. I want to move on to comparing it to the 2021 Tracer 9 because it's going to come to Japan eventually. And for all we know, it's coming in 3 days. Will I have that sudden regret of, I bought the 2020 and look at the 2021? And I don't think I will. And let's give a list of reasons why. So if you get the new one, so I'm just going to say the 9 versus the 900 to keep it simple. 9 being the new one, 900 being the old one, because name changes. So if you get the Tracer 9 GT model, you get an up and down quick shifter. But as I said earlier, my street triple taught me that's not a deal breaker. Up only is something I can easily be happy with. Two personal preference things with aesthetics. I like the older colors versus the new colors, so this is good. And I like this dash. It's small, but it's simple and straightforward. This one single simple dash, and it has a night mode, which can be turned on permanently. I haven't played with the dials yet. I just picked this bike up an hour ago, but this is better than the scuba goggles in my opinion. So those are two nods to this bike that are purely opinion. If you like the new one, get the new one. The next thing is obvious, like saving money. There's no price listing here in Japan, but the Japanese prices usually parallel the USA prices quite closely. I'm saving in US dollars over $3,000 on this bike, and since I lost enough money already with the previous bike, this is just the smarter bet. The new one absolutely has more features. It has a lot more stuff. It's got a lot of updates, but most of them are things I don't personally want. I don't really care for. Like the electronic suspension, it's more weight for something that if it's not broke, don't fix it. I'm sure if I had one, it's something I would like. It's not something I wanted. Like for me, the minimum is 2-stage traction control, a few drive modes, ABS is good, adjustability in the forks is good, unless like the Suzuki SV, it's just pretty perfect from the factory. And cruise control is a nice thing to have, which this has, so it's not an upgrade to the new one because you get the same cruise control system. Yes, it weighs a little bit less, but I wouldn't call this heavy. Yes, it makes a little bit more power, but this is too much for me. I'm not saying the new one's bad. I'm not even saying don't get it. I'm actually saying the opposite. Definitely get it. If you can get it, and if you can afford it, get it. But the reviews I've seen so far, the price difference for the features I actually want, it's not there for me. And I mean, yeah, let's try this cruise control again. Set it 65 kilometers an hour. hands up. Yes, I'm within the speed range, and that's just great. No hands. What a world. I'm just so happy right now. This is tremendous. I believe you have to be going over 60 kilometers an hour, roughly 40 or 42 maybe miles per hour, and you have to be in 4th gear or higher. I can live with that. Now, the features I do regret about this bike, and the features I'll regret against the new bike, it's not Euro 5. Again, most of you don't care. That's okay. Please don't hate me for caring about the climate. Obviously don't care enough to stop riding altogether, but it would have been nice to get a Euro 5 bike. It would have been nice to get that slightly better fuel economy they're claiming, which people do seem to be getting, but I emphasize the word slight. The other thing is the plastic panniers. If you're in the USA or Europe and you buy a Tracer 900 GT from 2019 or 2020, you got these cool color matched panniers with it. We don't in Japan. That costs extra for reasons. I assume it's because look how tight these roads are and people like to filter. Even those small panniers are too much. This being a new bike and slightly taller than my street triple, slightly wider bars, I'm not even risking it in some spots with filtering. So add panniers and you get a question mark. I think I'm gonna get on a different road. This is just infuriating. The last thing, which maybe while stuck at this traffic light is good to show, is it's just a Yamaha thing. They love plastic too much. Like, this is cheap plastic, not terribly cheap, but this is wiggly plastic. This is plastic that can wiggle a bit. You know, it's just plastic everywhere. It's very plasticky. Plastic. Behind me, soft, squishy plastic. I will say, this tank, like, I thought the Trident was a metal tank because it's just really good plastic. I checked, and I felt the tank as I filled it with fuel. This is a real tank behind this part of plastic in front of this part of plastic. So that's not nothing. But I will say, I was definitely worried, is it going to be too much power? But its power to weight ratio is barely more than the Street Triple S I had, because it weighs that much more. And keeping it in B mode, it hasn't seemed uncumbersome at all. And the way the weight is, it's just an easy thing to sit on all day. The seat slopes you a bit forward, not nearly as bad as the Street Triple did. And I moved it to the higher setting, because the higher setting only raises the front by, I think, 1.5 centimeters, like half an inch. It helps. It's not perfect, just the truth. So, in closing, I mean, hopefully the new Yamahas that are being made in Japan by Japanese people 2.5 hours south of here will eventually come to Japan. That would be lovely. But for now, this is fine. And I'm also hoping that if the 800-ish Africa Twin is real and the CBX Africa Twin Sport Touring version is real, that means there can be an 800 Sport Touring Africa Twin in the future. Again, I don't know that it'll be good enough to say replace this. And even hopefully we get a mid-size V-Strom that's actually updated this coming year and gets a massive weight reduction, because this weighs the same and makes so much more power. Hopefully they all get cruise control because touring bikes. But if all those hopes fail, I have this. This is one of the most reliable engines on the market. It's here now. It does all the things I need it to do. A lot of the complaints I've heard about it don't seem to bother me, like the keys are hard to get to with a gloved hand. I always take my gloves off to get it, and if you turn it to the side, it makes a nice little gateway to the key. Well, my camera died. While I was taking a break and charging my camera, I figured out dark mode. I also figured out a few more settings. And one other thing is, yeah, these brakes are a bit spongy, not quite as firm as my Street Triple, but my Street Triple had braided brake lines, so maybe that's an upgrade to make in the future, but they're by no means bad brakes. They work fine, you just have a bit of a sponginess to it, but it'll stop you just as good. But generally, I'm very happy with this bike, and I hope it lasts me for many years to come, because financially it has to. But no, I can't imagine getting rid of it anytime soon, unless there's some magic bike that comes out in the next few years. This is me. at least until we've paid off all our loans and our debts. Till then, this has been Kairyu Rider. You should probably get back to work.